Record. All right, so let's get this party started. Welcome in. For those of you that are new, the standard is simple. It's a room where men tell the truth. No ego, no fronting, no pretending it's fine when it's not. We're here because most of us grew up with the idea that a man should carry everything alone, and that pressure just crushes people and eventually is killing them. This is a group where we break that cycle for us and for future generations, many of us being fathers as well. And as you guys know, everything runs through the 4 pillars. First one being mindset, which is what tonight's call is all about. That's how you think, how you respond, how you face adversity, the difference between spiraling and stepping up. Finances, it's not about being rich. It's about responsibility, stability, leadership. Your money habits reflect your self-respect. Fitness, it's not to look pretty. It's to be strong enough to lead your family, to build discipline, energy, and self-confidence. That's integrity comes into play the most. And brotherhood, we had that call last week. It's men you can trust, men who will tell you the truth, even though it might not feel good, men who carry the weight and not judge it. And every week we go deeper into one pillar. It's mindset week, and our theme is extreme ownership. Before we dive into the content, thank you again, Phil, for being an amazing guest speaker this evening. I always want to start with our shares. So again, you're not required to share, but if you're a little uncomfortable with sharing, step a little bit out of your comfort zone, be brave, which I tell my daughter every morning on the way to daycare. Share one of 3 things. A win from this week that you're really excited about, something that you're very grateful for, or something heavy that's been on your chest and you just want to get it out to the room. Remember, no judgment. Everything we say in this call is just between us. I'll start. I had a heavy moment last week or so. I kind of let my standards slip a little bit. I wasn't holding myself as accountable. And I've also been feeling a lot of imposter syndrome, especially with this group. Phil, you're way more successful in this business than I ever been. There's people on here that different levels. And feels like I'm trying to teach and coach people that are older. It's been a weird dynamic. I've been doing my journaling and affirmations every day to help me through that. But that's something that's been a little heavy on my chest. And then something I'm grateful for is just all of you guys tonight showing up, being ready to be vulnerable, being ready to share. And I'm just excited to learn and grow with all of you guys. So floor is open for anybody who would like to share.
So I'm so fired up. This past Saturday, I got a pizza influencer in the state of Connecticut pizza tour to visit the restaurant that I work with for managing their social media. He came and it was epic. He loved the pizza. This was his 103rd pizza stop. He only brought his kids on about 20, and he brought his daughter Annabelle. It was a super special moment. John was just so fired up, so grateful. And we got so much great content. It's a long time in the works. I really had to finesse and pull some strings to get Connecticut Pizza Tour there, but it was awesome. I'm just fired up about it.
I'm so happy for you, man. I know you've been talking about the last couple of weeks. It's very exciting. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I mean, it's a few weeks ago now, but after a long period of unstable housing, my partner and I were able to rent a standalone home at the beginning of November. And that's been a culmination of a huge dream for a very long time, and we are enjoying the spoils of that for sure.
I love it, man. Yeah, I saw your Facebook post about it. Thank you for sharing so much. So good to you kind of moving your life forward. I love it. Phil, I think you came off mute next.
Yeah, well, I flew out of town for 24 hours, had a great meal with the region manager, and then went to that show. I'm from Chicago. I've been going to Chicago for work since 2002. My stepdad's youngest brother lives there. He's one of the only people in my family still out there. Every time I go to Chicago, it's always work. I made the extra effort to meet with my uncle. He taught me how to drive. I was 15, driving a car with him. We laughed for hours. He was like my older brother, but he was 4 years younger than me. So he's my stepdad's youngest brother. He was only 4 years older than me. When I was growing up, I haven't been in Chicago for permanently since 97. And so I finally was like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to just hang out with him for 3 hours or whatever. He's had a hard life. He's had 3 marriages. He's got his couple of kids that are he's not their favorite person, and it's his own fault. He's not unsuccessful, but he's coming to a rough patch. He's had some back surgeries and hard things. I hung out with him for 3-4 hours. We had fun. We talked. We laughed based on therapy. I just shared some things with him. It wasn't like, let me teach you how to live your life, but it was some insights that I've gone through hard things that I came to realize. I could tell I made his month, and it's not me, but just being able to share unabashedly, like we're trying to do in these calls, help people shoulder burdens. And so that was like tying right into what we're trying to do in these calls. I thought it was a ramp up. I might even mention it more in a little bit.
Thank you so much for sharing, Phil.
Yeah.
I actually had a reconnection with some buddies like 10 years ago and just kind of stepped right into it. It's amazing dropping right back into those relationships. Cool that you're sharing the stuff we're teaching here and from your other coaching groups and stuff as well. And I appreciate you. Nick, Frank, either you guys want to share? Again, no pressure to, but I'm just going to open the floor if you guys want. Give me a thumbs down if you don't want to.
I think I'm good for right now. I'm just walking into the house really quick, so I don't want to hold up.
Nick, you good? Making sure. Hit the microphone at the bottom and you'll unmute yourself. Well, I just wanted to make sure the floor was open for everybody to share. Let's dive into our content tonight. Mr. Phil Bolender is going to be guest speaking a little bit. I just going to kind of set him up here for a few minutes and then let him take the stage. So why mindset is one of the more important pillars that we talk about, because I think mindset is where everything starts. If you don't have a good mindset towards your fitness, your finances, you can learn all the things in the world, but it's all not because your mindset isn't the right frame. Accept it. So I always say your life right now is the sum of the choices you made 90 days ago. And your life 90 days from now will be determined by what you choose over the next few days. Mindset isn't positive thinking. It's responsibility. It's ownership. It's refusing to outsource your life to excuses. And I want to share first tonight, because the last few years of my life, some of you guys know this, I've been at war with myself. And the moments I thrived were the moments that I took full ownership. And the moments I collapsed were the moments that I blamed everything around me. And there was a stretch where everything just fell apart at once. Financially, I was drowning. June and I were swimming in debt. Personally, I felt lost. My dad died. My uncle died 2 months later. My stepfather died 2 years apart. Family felt heavy. I didn't feel like I was present for my wife or my daughter as much as I should have been. My business definitely wasn't where it needed to be. It was on the verge of bankruptcy and closing. And my confidence was shot. Everything felt like it was slipping. The truth is, none of it changed until I stopped blaming everything else and took extreme ownership. What I figured out was if I left and went to another company, I'm just going to bring the same problems that I have here, there, unless I grow and get out of these funks that I've been in. And that started with finances. If I'm broke, I'm just going to learn how to make more money. Invest, learning how to read stock charts and studying the market. I went all in. I tripled my net worth in under a year. And then I looked at my business, and for years I was half in and half out. My results depended on how I felt versus my standards and my actions. I finally said, I'm done with that. If I go out, I'm going out swinging, not as a quitter. And when I stopped making excuses, my entire year flipped. My development skyrocketed, my leadership leveled up, my emotions steady, and I'm on track for my best or second best year ever in 2025. Extreme ownership didn't just change my business, it helped rebuild me as a man. Ownership isn't about control, it's about responsibility. And your life changes the moment you stop negotiating with your excuses. A question that you can ask yourself in your journals is, where in your life have you felt the difference between ownership and blame? We'll come back to that in a little bit. I want to introduce Phil to you guys. Let me spotlight Phil here. There we go. Got the spotlights. I know some of you know Phil. He's been on a couple of the calls so far. Those guys that are in Vector land, you got to know him a little bit better. Phil is a Vector Marketing DVM division manager out in Salt Lake City, Utah. And after the call last week, he just given me some tips and advice. And I was like, hey, Phil, would you mind taking the stage next week and giving some great advice? He's one of the best men in our entire company. Honestly, I think he's one of the best men that I know. He's a great example of what happens when you own your life. And just a little bit of Phil. He's a national champion in our business. He's the number one recruiting office 2 years in a row. He's the number one new business office as well. His third year in a row. He's mentored top 10 plus top branch managers. He's won every trip and award that the company offers. I think the craziest stat that I ever heard is you've won P-Bank 17 years in a row or something like that.
24. 24 out of 26.
Misjudged by a few years there, but just like an absolute champion in our business. He's remarried, raising a blended family of 9 kids, 3 son-in-laws. I did shout out today. He's a grandfather of 3 granddaughters as well. Has gone through heartbreak, rebuilding, reinvention, and has came out much stronger. And Phil's not just successful, guys. He's resilient, relentless, and exactly who you want to hear from tonight about extreme ownership. Before I let you talk, Phil, I just want to share 2 things quickly. Phil helped me through one of the hardest moments of my life right after my father died. We were at a major conference. It was like a fun night out, and I was sitting by myself. Normally, I'm that gregarious person who's trying to be involved with everything, but I was just broken, and he noticed it and he came up to me and asked me how I was doing. And it was the first time in my life I didn't say I was just fine. I was a wreck. And Phil, I appreciate you sat there, listened, held space for me, and talked about losing your father. I needed that more than anything that entire weekend. I remember Mike, I mentioned this as a wind up at the end of SLC this past year. He said it twice. We've been in a pretty weird state in the last 3 or 4 years since COVID. And a lot of managers left. They have a lot of turnover. And I remember Mike Muriel, who's a region manager, saying that Phil came up to him and said, I need to lead. I need to lead this company. He took ownership of the problems, even though they were macro and had nothing to do with him. He just took ownership of it and he led the way. 3 years, going to be 3 years in a row, being the #1 new business office in the entire nation. He's going to teach us a little bit about ownership in our lives. So let's give space for our fellow brother, Phil Bolander.
Thank you so much, Aaron. I really appreciate that. I'm going to expand on that story a little bit. That decision, a call with a bunch of division managers, our region. That was the fall of 22. Here we are, the fall of 25. It's been 3 years. We were #1 most of 23 and most of 24. Both times we lost at the end of the year to Trey Harris. This year, we're not losing. We're #1 and way ahead. I don't see us slowing down, and I don't see anybody catching up. So it's exciting that we'll finally be #1. I didn't want to overstate what we actually have done. We've been #2 twice, and now we're going to be #1. Fall of 22 was right before 23, right? Somewhere around July, August, I was about to be going through a divorce. I was really having a hard time. And my relationship with my region manager in Cutco was a struggle. Every manager who works closely with their next, like, I'm sure the vice president has things to say about the president. Every colonel in the army has things to say about the general, and every corporal wants to say some serious stuff about the lieutenant. In a law firm, in a hospital hierarchy, there's going to be where things don't mesh. Mike and I were in a really bad place. And he has his things and I have my things. How many guys agree? You've never been perfect, but the other guy's never been perfect either. By the way, I've never been perfect as a husband, and neither has my wife or spouse ever been perfect, right? When you play the blame game, and there I had stacks of evidence of how wrong he is and she was. Can you relate? In any hard situation with a close relationship, in any human being working adult's life, their direct boss or manager and their spouse are arguably the two most serious relationships. You spend the most time doing both. Even though you should have a balanced life, you spend half of your waking hours working, and the rest is centered around your family. So it's your spouse and your manager, right? I had evidence in my mind of why we're having problems because of him. I'm in a different men's group and have been for 5+ years. And we had a guest speaker. The book, I'm going to have you guys write it down. If someone wants to, Aaron, if you want to look it up, it's the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. My 2 favorite books of 2023 were the 15, and I was looking around earlier on Zoom because I've referred to that book twice in the last couple of weeks. And I must have said it somewhere, and it's not on my desktop, my bookshelf. So now I'm annoyed because I want to specifically talk about it. The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. I'm going to highly recommend it. In the beginning of the book, it's on the tip of my tongue. He runs strategic coaching. It's a worldwide coaching organization, but I can't spit his name out right now. I talk about it all the time. He talks about how of the 15 commitments, the first 2 are the most important. The first one is taking responsibility. When you think of the word taking, it's not accepting responsibility. It's not allowing responsibility to be put upon you. It's literally reaching out and taking responsibility. I wound up taking the responsibility of our relationship. I'm going to talk mostly about my region manager, and I'll share 1 or 2 other stories. I took responsibility, and I have Xtreme Ownership, Jocko's book, on my shelf right there, ready to read. Right there. Over here is the books I read, and over here is some books I need to read. In the book, 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. The first response is taking responsibility. Here's why. When you take responsibility for all the contributions you make, everything is in your power. By the way, I've read another book called Codependency. One of the things it talks about, and it's 12 steps. If you guys are familiar with 12 steps to any addiction, they always talk about 12 steps. And it's literally, codependency is a addiction essentially as well. And it talks about how when you play the blame game, you are now the one that has no power. If I played the blame game with my region manager, with my ex-wife, with my wife, with my kids, and I have adult kids, and they're rough, just so you guys know, little kids are great and they tick you off, but things aren't so hard when they just are kids. But when they're adults and they're hard, man, it hurts. And if I play the blame game with anybody, I am now the person being acted upon. I'm the direct object in the conversation. The direct object has no power. Subject of the sentence, you're the one that does the verbing. When I take the responsibility, I am no longer being acted upon. I have full power to act and take responsibility for the relationship. So I started taking responsibility. And just so you know, Aaron, this is private but public in this room. Mike and I were talking about me leaving. Not long after that conversation, I was coaching with a professional coach, spending a lot of cash, a lot of time with a professional coach, another group that I'm a part of from our dads. I said, all right, this is all in my power. As crappy as it is, it's my responsibility and I'm taking it. And I stopped playing the blame game. I stopped worrying about his stuff. I've got stacks of journals from the last 5 years. I've spent more time journaling in 5 years than I spent in the last, I'm 50. So probably 45 years I've spent. Only the 2 years I was in Connecticut did I journal as much as I journal nowadays, okay? On my religious mission is when I journaled the most, and now the last 5 years. It took me 6 months with a professional coach. I was doing therapy at the time for the marriage. Through that process, and reading these books, the second book I should mention, it's 350 pages of neuroscience. This is John Berghoff's favorite book, by the way, Leading Well from Within. And these are the two books I talked about at SLC a couple years ago, Aaron. So 15 Commitments to Conscious Leadership is the one I would start with if I'm you guys, and then Leading Well from Within. They talk about how if you're in fear-based, it's in your amygdala. When you're playing the blame game, you're always being acted upon. It's like the elephant, the dinosaur, the saber-toothed tiger, the economy, and the president of the United States. Everybody's after you. The IRS, everybody's after you. And you're working from a fear-based, threat-based mentality. The amygdala protects you from harm, but your brain can't tell the difference when you're thinking of things as a threat. When you get in your prefrontal cortex, this is in the second book, Leading Well from Within, you get in your prefrontal cortex, which is your logic brain. So you're like 25. It's not fully developed till you're 25. And I think with today's society and social media, your prefrontal cortex is developing slower and smaller than it's ever developed before in human history. But if you're in your prefrontal cortex, you're in the challenge mode. Think of the responsibility that you take. You think of, instead of the threat of your manager, the threat of your spouse, the threat of your dynamic changing relationship with the spouse, with the boss, with your kids. If you think of it as a threat and a problem and it's all their fault, you're in a fear-based mentality and you're always being acted upon. Whereas if you take responsibility and you say challenge accepted. I remember one year we went to Cape Cod for a family vacation, and the challenge was to change what the look of that beach looked like. I wanted to dig the biggest hole in the channel of water, because by the time we were an hour or two into this thing, I had 45 kids at the beach just totally doing construction. Like they brought every shovel they could find, and we were changing the shape of this beach in Cape Cod. It was a challenge. I'm like, I want to change this thing. But when you take responsibility and you say, challenge accepted, I'm going to do everything in my power. I'm going to tell you a story. We have a closer relationship than any of the other DDM. Now, let me go ahead and say, in a sadder story, while I was doing all this coaching and growing, my spouse and I were already on the rocks, but we kept growing in a different direction. My fault as much as hers. We were almost divorced 4 years before this. So we tried to stick it out again, and it wasn't going to happen. I wrote on my own volition, due to the books and study and coaching that I've been doing, the longest anniversary card that I ever wrote, with every expectation that things wouldn't go well. This wasn't me begging her to stay with me. I was willing to do everything we could, and we had done some things, but not everything to make it work. But I wrote a letter, I wrote a card, and it was essentially a letter with every ounce of gratitude I could give for anything and everything she had done as my wife, as the mother of my children, as employees, as someone who owns a house with me. I knew it may or may not affect what was going to happen, but out of my own volition to take responsibility and to offer her something I could about as a man expressing things that I should be expressing to anyone, married to or not to, for what she has done in my life. And it was an example that was hard to do. There was so much blame still in my heart as a co-parent now for a couple of years with her, 13 years since we had kids. Even before that, before we had kids, I had kids. So she was co-parenting with my daughters. There's things that I don't appreciate that she's done or is doing with my daughters, but I still took responsibility and expressed extreme ownership for things that I've done. I'll tell you, it's been a rough road, but a very difficult and important road to grow in my relationships, to take full responsibility for how my kids feel about me. I've got kids that are 34, 28, 25, 18, 16, 14, 13, and 9. They all have their own thoughts and emotions. And when they express hard things at all ages, I'm like, okay, what element of this dynamic is my fault? And what can I own? And again, as a parent, as a dad, as a husband currently, and it's one of the reasons why I attracted the person I'm married to now. It's an unbelievable difference by becoming the man I knew I wanted to be, but hadn't made the steps. And we have craziness in our house right now because kids got transplanted and teenagers have, who's this other teenager? They know each other, they're friends, really. But living together is totally different than hanging out while your parents are dating. Living together has been hellish for them. But the thing that's awesome is that my wife and I are really good between the two of us. And we have some hard conversations about how I parent and how she parents and all this stuff. But because we're both taking responsibility versus defending. That's the other part of taking responsibility, is I don't have to defend because I can just say, yeah, that's valid. That's totally on me. I did make a decision. I'm trying to model that for my kids, to take responsibility and to own the mistakes and own my habits and mentalities, which is sometimes BS. Tony Robbins calls it a belief system or BS. A belief system can be BS. And I have to take responsibility. It's fun to own that. So without going too deep into all the conversations, even with my uncle, it's been such a relieving thing, an exciting thing to own instead of blame, right? And not point the finger, because I have no power if I point the finger, because they're acting upon me versus I can always own my own self. And again, model that for my kids. That's what I got for you guys. Appreciate your attention. Open to any questions or thoughts.
Thank you so much, Bill, for being vulnerable and giving real life examples of where extreme ownership can take place personally and professionally. Thank you so much for opening your heart, sir. Before we move on, I'd like to have at least 2 shares. What were some big takeaways from that? What was an aha moment? I have a couple. I got a page full of notes from that, but I'll have 2 shares and then I'll share my biggest take from that as well. Don't be shy.
I'll share if it's okay with everybody.
Thanks, Hi, Frank.
How's it going, everybody? I think a big takeaway for me was taking accountability for my actions. It's something I've struggled with, not being sure whether I want to commit, and staying true to that commitment is difficult at times. Just continuing to work on taking accountability for my actions really spoke to me.
I love that, Frank. Thank you so much. If I can offer just a little insight there, Frank, with commitment. I can't remember who said this, but they said 99% commitment is incredibly hard and 100% commitment is completely freeing. Think about an example I give you guys is like anybody been in a relationship before? They were like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So let's see how the next couple of weeks goes. Kind of like, Phil, I think we're going to talk about that a little bit in your story. It never ends well. So I think about the little kid who's walking into the ocean and taking them 40 minutes to get up their waist versus the kid that's sprinting in, diving in head first and getting it all out of the way. Great insights there, Frank. I'll share. I never was able to put this into words, Phil. I've been going through a lot of the blame game. We've had multiple conversations on this where I was just blaming everything. But when you said it's a threat versus a challenge, that was like, oh, that makes way more sense to me at the end of the day. And that's how I've been viewing a lot of my life ever since I made that little switch. Would anyone else like to share? One last share? All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you, Frank, for sharing. All right, guys, grab your journals. We're gonna wrap up with some reflecting. To take a lot of concepts we took today. Learning things is great, but putting it into action is what's going to change our lives. I want you guys to grab your journal or open up your notes, and I'm going to guide you through some prompts. The first one, I want you to ask yourself, what area of my life have I been avoiding ownership in? So what area of my life have I been avoiding ownership in? It could be in money, fitness, discipline, your work ethic, relationships, emotional control, integrity, stuff like that. All right. Now I want you to start thinking about, and I want you to write the truth, not the polite version, the real one. What excuses have I been repeating to myself that keep me stuck? So what are those excuses that you're constantly giving yourself in your mind? And a big tip here, just be brutal and relentless. I find excuses feel logical. Ownership feels uncomfortable. So you should feel a little uncomfortable as you're writing these down. Feel free to throw in the chat if you don't want to come off mute. My third question for you guys is, what one area do I need to take full ownership this week? Not 10, not 12, 1. Ownership starts where denial ends. And please, if you're not going to share this on the call tonight, share that with somebody important to you, your wife, your husband, someone important to you that's going to hold you accountable. I'm going to go to June right after this and be like, hey, can you hold me accountable on this? Because I need to get this done. It is like the massive pivotal key to our office having the success that you want to have for next year. And then as we create some action steps, guys, remember, ownership means nothing without action. So the last exercise I want you to do is, what specific action will I take in the next 48 hours to prove that I'm serious about leveling up in this? I'm going to message 400 LinkedIn people in the next 2 days. That's my action step.
My action step's a lot easier. I just have to make a dentist appointment.
I like everybody at least share an action step so we can all hold people accountable next week when we come back on our call. So Jeff,
I'd like to be held accountable to that. No problem. I can double down on that.
I mean, it should take you 5 minutes to do both of those. All right, so that's a simple and easy one. Anyone else want to share their action step?
Mine is to outreach to 100 local businesses or growing brands.
100. You planning on doing that all one day, Charles? Or you kind of breaking it up?
20 a day.
20 a day? Perfect. Love it. Just want to make sure you have an action plan for it. Love it, bud. Thanks. Eddie, Frank, Nick, any of you guys want to share?
I want to take out 2 of my assistant managers in training so I can talk to them about being AMs, hopefully promoting 2 more to the office.
Eddie, if I can give you some advice, just pick a time and date when you're going to do that.
As of right now, I'm taking them out on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock.
Love it. Eddie, 2 new AMs. Perfect. Anyone else want to hold accountable to next week? Nick, Frank?
Be held accountable for planning out my schedule.
Planning out schedule?
I've been struggling with not necessarily meeting deadlines, but feeling less pressured to meet deadlines because I keep putting things off.
Okay.
So a lot of procrastination for sure.
Can I give you a plan to plan? Block off like 30 minutes a week just to plan out your calendar for the week and just make it a non-negotiable. I usually do it before footballs on Sunday. It's kind of like an easy time I find to do it because I'm just watching pregame and fantasy football advice. I'm not doing anything important. Thank you guys for sharing. All right. Everybody good? Nick, I appreciate it. So as we wrap up, let me grab my notes here. In short, everything in my life changed. And as you guys heard from Phil, when we took extreme ownership, when I blamed the economy, the company, my circumstances, I sank. When I owned my money, I tripled my net worth. When I owned my emotions, my business grew. When I owned my leadership, my team started winning again. Again, ownership didn't just fix my business, it stabilized my family and my life. If you want to change your life, ownership is the doorway to do that. As we wrap up tonight, I just want to thank all of you for being on this evening. Our largest call yet. That's only going to get bigger every week as we grow the movement. What makes the standard really powerful isn't me. It's not one guy talking. It's the fact that every single one of us carries a piece of wisdom someone else needs. When you invite people in, when you open the circle, you unlock something bigger than any man can create alone. This is community. This is brotherhood. It's a place where men can sharpen each other, challenge each other, hold space for each other, but also rise together. If tonight hit you, if something landed, don't keep it to yourself. Share with another brother who needs this. Invite him next week to our fitness pillar call. Don't overthink it. Just say, hey, man, this helped me. Come sit with us. You never know who's one conversation away from pulling themselves out of a very dark place. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for helping build something that men desperately need. By the way, anyone looking for one-on-one coaching, I have a few more spots left for this year. Nick Gomez has been doing it with me for 6 weeks, has drastically flipped his life 180, is more clear and focused, and has found happiness again. So Charles, excited to start our one-on-ones tomorrow. Offering free one-on-one coaching for the rest of 2025. I'm still figuring out pricing models for next year, but right now it's completely free for the next 5 weeks. If any of you guys would like to do that, I got 2 or 3 more spots open. Check me one-on-one and we can find a time to start setting those up. Thank you again for showing up tonight, guys. And our motto, we rise, we lead, we love together. Thank you guys. I'll stay on for a few minutes if anybody wants to chat.